Welcome back to EP3. Simple to complex, we make energy modeling easy. In this tutorial, we'll be continuing with the multifamily residential building, and we're talking about constructions and materials. Multifamily residential building that was originally generated based on the wizard creation. And when we were in the wizard, we selected some materials that are the minimum requirements for ASHRAE 90.1 2022 for Climate Zone 5 residential construction. And if we go to our construction dialog, we can see a list of all of those constructions that were created. We have this adiabatic interior floor and ceiling construction, which is being used because we're using floor multipliers. So that adiabatic construction can be seen on the floor and the ceiling between these stories. And then we have all of the different default constructions. We also have a construction, this one is called F factor material, and it has a number here. We have a regular interior floor and ceiling construction, interior wall construction, and residential glass door construction, which we created in an earlier tutorial. Now, if we click on these, and we notice that in parentheses, it says construction or construction C factor underground wall. So this tells us what type of construction it is. We click on a regular construction. So let's look at the roof construction. We'll see we have a bunch of layers here, starting with an outside layer, residential roof construction. So we have an outside layer, and then we have an insulating layer and an inside layer. And you can have up to 10 different layers here. With the default constructions, they're all lightweight constructions with no thermal mass. So we're just giving it a metal surface, insulation, and some gypsum board. At the top, we can select a construction type, and then there are a couple of parameters that are EP3 specific. Some of them are used for the ASHRAE 90.1 baseline generator, which is still in development. We also have a box to check here, which says, is construction glazing? And we have an expected construction adjacency. So this expected construction adjacency allows EP3 to double check and detect if an interior wall is detected in a place where it has an outside construction adjacency. EP3 will tell you, hey, we have this wall. So for example, if this wall right here had an interior construction adjacency or an interior construction assigned, then EP3 would tell you there is an exterior wall that has an interior construction assigned. We think there's an error here. Infiltration rate we'll get to later. This is used only when you're doing some very detailed infiltration modeling. But again, take a look at these tooltips. All right, let's take a look at some materials as well. So I'm going to open up the regular dialog, and we can see there are a couple different types of materials in the model. If I expand this, so we can filter by material. There are a lot of different material types that we're not currently using, but these are the most commonly used materials. So regular material will have roughness, thickness, conductivity, density, and specific heat. These are the types of materials you want to use if you need to model thermal mass. So if you're modeling concrete or stone or earth type construction, use material. There's material air gap. So this can be used to describe space between glazing or space in a ceiling or a wall construction. And then there's also material no mass. So this is generally used simply for insulation layers. And for glazing, there's a simple glazing system which just accepts a U factor, solar heat gain coefficient, and visible transmittance. There are also some other more detailed glazing constructions. So that relates back to this construction is glazing checkbox. So if we look at let's see, operable fenestration construction, we have this construction is glazing checkbox checked, which means that EP3 will limit your options for your layers to only be material types that are accepted by glazing. You can't use a regular material or a material no mass type of material in glazing. You need to have something that allows visible light to pass through. So we're just using a very simple glazing system for the glazing simulation. Now, to change your construction in your model, we simply use the paintbrush. So let's give an example. Now, in the last module, we created an extra space on the ground floor here for the elevator machine room. And when we created that space, we created some additional roof surface right here. However, if we look at this surface, and we can inspect it using the selected object dialog, we see the construction name right here is the adiabatic interior floor ceiling construction. So right now, just toggling on the exterior geometry, let's go. If we look straight down from the top, we look through, we can see that this surface is exposed. And actually we have a couple of other surfaces that will be exposed to roof surfaces. So we need to assign those surfaces to a roof construction. So let's do one at a time. Let's look at our constructions dialog. First we'll select the paint bucket tool. The shortcut is B, or we can select the paint bucket tool on the ribbon. And then I'm going to find my residential roof construction, and if I select it here, it will actually select that construction for me, and I just need to paint the face. That's it. So updating this dialog, we can see now that this has a residential roof construction. Okay, the next step, we can see actually that these roof surfaces, or this roof surface here, is not actually intersected with our new spaces that we created. So I'm going to exit. I'm going to refresh the geometry and zone assignments, and that should give us all the intersections we need so that we actually have surfaces associated with each of these subspaces. And this takes a minute. This process takes a minute. So next, looking from the top, we have these corner pieces, and we need to assign a roof construction as well. So I'm going to click into that ground ceiling group. And now I'm going to use SketchUp tools. I'm going to use the line tool. So click L on the keyboard for a shortcut. And then I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to start drawing. You'll notice in SketchUp, and again, we have SketchUp specific tutorials for you on our website. The X, Y, and Z axes in SketchUp are denoted by red, green, and blue. And as you're drawing, if you align what you're drawing with those axes, your lines will snap a little bit and pick up those colors. Now, once it has the color, if you hold the Shift key down, you can lock to the axes. So no matter where I move the cursor, the line is still on that Y or green axis. So I can reference any point anywhere else in the model that I want to. So right now I want to reference this point here because this is how far back I need this exposed roof to be. So I will click here, and then I want to be on the red or x-axis and click there. And now if I use Paint Bucket, I should still have that roof construction selected, and I can create that roof. So I'll do the same thing on the other corners. And now I have all of my surfaces that are exposed to the exterior. They now have a roof type construction. So all of my roof surfaces now have roof constructions. Let's take a look at this F factor material. When I click on the F factor material, the drawing changes colors. And what that means, F factors have a heat loss that is defined based on the perimeter edge of the material, not based on surface area. So it's the exposed perimeter. Now, any imported F factor is going to be named in accordance with its actual F factor. So if I switch units here, you can see that in international units, my F factor is the same as the name. So here, I'm just going to change it. Just going to change the name and call this ground floor construction. Okay, so going back to normal view, we can take a look and we see that all of these ground floor surfaces are assigned with our ground floor construction. In order to actually model heat loss with an F factor type construction, we need to identify the perimeter edges. Now, internally in EnergyPlus, the construction has an additional, a couple additional fields, which are grayed out here. It has the area and the perimeter exposed. So if you have an EnergyPlus file with 100 different spaces on your ground floor, you may end up with 100 different F factor constructions so that the area and the perimeter exposed is correct for each one of these. Now in EP3, we do all of that hard work for you. So you just need to identify which surfaces have that ground floor F factor construction and the perimeter edges. So there are a couple of ways to identify perimeter edges. There are a few options. And as you're going through EP3, any object that you're looking at, you'll see there's always this View IDF button, but some of them have additional buttons that allow you to do special operations that are unique to that particular object. So with the ground construction F factor ground floor, we have the option to automatically assign perimeter. We can add perimeter edges and we can remove perimeter edges. So I'm going to hit automatically assign perimeter. and you'll see what happens. Okay, so it's identified all of these edges, these exterior edges, or everything that is showing up in red is being identified as a perimeter. Now, if we wanted to change that, customize it, let's go into the ground floor. And if I select a couple of edges, and I said remove perimeter edges, you can see that those now have this normal green material. Anything that is green is not recognized as a perimeter, and anything that is red is recognized as a perimeter. Let's select those again and say add perimeter edges, and we have them back. So often you may have a building that is an addition to an existing building. So we may have an entire wall that has, say, adiabatic construction. And in that case, we might want to not have all of these perimeter edges identified as actual heat transfer perimeter. So you can customize it quite easily here. Now, if we go and we look at this surface and we hit View IDF, we'll see that this surface has all of the IDF for the surface, and in addition, it has this construction F factor ground floor. So it will tell you the ground floor residential apartments, and then the name gets quite long, but it's the name of the surface plus the name of the construction. The F factor is consistent, the area is calculated, and so is the perimeter. Both are calculated. Now we may want to create an additional construction. I'd like to clarify something with language here. SketchUp materials are basically these colors. So if we look at our default tray here, and I'll pin it so it doesn't disappear on us, and we open our materials, there are a whole bunch of materials listed. Some of them are also shown here, and some of them are just kind of materials. You'll recognize some symbols from the HVAC systems here. If we go to list view, we can see adiabatic interior floor ceiling and all of these climate zone 5 options listed here. Now, if we need a new construction with construction properties, there are two ways to do it. One is we can add SketchUp materials to constructions, and it will open a pop-up. And we can select some of these materials that are in the SketchUp model. So some of them are from a SketchUp character here. So let's just choose this fire brick and say add selected materials. It will ask us to select the construction type and the boundary condition, and I'll click OK. And then it gives us this fire brick, and we can add layers. We can also, if we want to create a construction from scratch, we can call this new construction. Again, we can select the construction type and the outside boundary condition. And then we have this new construction. And we can always change the color profile right in EP3. So if you want to use the SketchUp materials dialog to create and manage constructions, that's totally fine, but you can also just stay in EP3. Now, if I move these constructions, we should still have that fire brick here. So you're not removing the material from SketchUp, you're just removing the construction properties. So EP3 doesn't include it in this list. Welcome back to EP3. Simple to complex, we make energy modeling easy. In this tutorial, we'll be continuing with the multifamily residential building, and we're talking about constructions and materials.